Today, I want to talk about something that's really important to me: how therapists can reignite curiosity and love for the work that we do. On this episode, I want to share that therapist motivation is truly a passion of mine because I love encouraging other clinicians to mix things up, to think creatively about how we stay inspired in this field, because that's something that I've always done in my almost 2 decades as a therapist. There's actually some really fascinating research that backs this up. A comprehensive synthesis of therapist development studies shows that our motivation really thrives when our day-to-day practice experience includes competence, feelings of genuine connection, and those really beautiful in-session moments of positive emotion. But when our work becomes dominated by stress and strain, that's when motivation can start to fade. And of course, we have a lot of those moments at times in our field as well. In episode 15 of season 1 of the Self Careapist Therapist, Dr. Hillary Hurst Bush shares this great framework she and her co-author call Aptitude, Practice, and Passion, APP. And it's really elegant. It starts with leaning into what you're naturally good at. That's the aptitude. Maybe for you, it's just vibing with CBT or DBT or something really cognitive, and not feeling like just because you learned it that you're going to want to facilitate something more experiential like psychodrama. Just leaning into what really feels good and in alignment with your aptitude and your strengths. And then you practice that aptitude, and from there you discover what truly lights you up. But here's what I think creates really lasting motivation: getting clear on what your passion is and what your values are when it comes to your work. So as therapists, there's this great foundational value of offering care and support in a meaningful, altruistic way. And for most people, some alignment with those qualities is what draws us to the field to begin with. But there's also so much room for your other personal values to show up. Things like joy, creativity, spontaneity, a love of learning. And when we can identify that value and just imagine how we can weave it into the work that we're doing in the therapy room, that's when everything can shift. There's opportunity to weave it in other areas too. I talk a lot about weaving in our values to our self-care, but I think it can make it really fun when you're connecting that to the work we're doing as therapists. So let me give you an example of weaving in a value with the example of learning. Instead of scrambling for last-minute CEUs just to check boxes, what if you sought out really exciting, high-value continuing education on topics that genuinely fascinated you? I personally set the goal of diving into a new framework with every license renewal, and it keeps things fresh and keeps me growing. I also have the expensive habit from a time management perspective, but also a fiscal perspective of seeing those frameworks through to the highest level of training in most cases, because then I can be sure that I'm applying the framework to the best of my ability. And speaking of learning, there's this great trend going around TikTok right now called the personal curriculum, where people are essentially designing their own college courses on topics they want to deeply explore and master. And it's a super intentional approach to learning that's driven purely by curiosity and personal interest. And actually, I have a advanced mental health personal curriculum that you can download at lorrainemoorhead.com/podcast if you want to see more about it. But this is actually cool for personal pursuits as well, because some of the personal curriculums on TikTok are dedicated to fashion, art, music, a specific type of instrument. They really are going in all directions. And that's super cool too, because it allows you to imagine that you could learn more about something that could be completely unrelated to this work And then maybe even find out that it does relate in some way, or the curriculum that you decide to pursue could actually illuminate a passion or a value that you have and could then figure out a way to integrate into your therapeutic work, which I think is really neat to imagine. So think about your own values. How can they show up more fully in your practice? Because when your work reflects what truly matters to you, not just that altruistic care, but also the joy or the creativity, the ongoing discovery, that's when motivation can be something that you integrate every day and not something that you hope to tap into. Now, there's some really interesting reflective tools that have emerged from the counseling studies as well, and I find them so valuable. So, another motivational sustaining practice is supervision and journaling and supervision. And not just as a way to discharge emotion, but that is important, but you can actually track the questions that come up for you, your intuitions, those little puzzles that emerge in the work, which can be really exciting and motivating to see that process and progress through as well. And what's fascinating is that this practice tends to foster a stance of inquiry rather than certainty, which I think is where the magic happens. And for a lot of us, it takes a lot of years in the field and a lot of practice to get to that inquiry place. When we can stay curious instead of needing to have all the answers, we can create so much space and growth and discovery for ourselves and our clients. And one strategy that I think is really powerful for enhancing curiosity and excitement and motivation is video recording your sessions. I know my supervisees hate to see me come in when I have this bright idea, but because it can be really vulnerable, of course, to watch yourself, hear yourself. That's a big concern for a lot of people on video, but to receive feedback on what is actually happening can be so great because you can review your work and see whether you're using your chosen methods with fidelity, get feedback on those methods, and it can become an incredible learning tool to bring into supervision. And there's something about watching yourself that deepens your understanding in a way that memory alone can't capture. For me, sometimes I will have thought I said what I tried to say, and then watching it back, I'm like, oh, there was a little bit of an opportunity there to hash that out further, to ask another question about it, to check in about what my client heard, because watching it back, I can tell that I didn't say it in a way that landed with them. So it can be really neat. I even do that with podcasts. I think about how would I have liked to say that more clearly, or how could I have conveyed that point with even more intention. And you really notice those subtle moments and the interventions that landed beautifully and even the ones that really didn't. And all of that becomes fuel for the curious, inquiring mindset that keeps us engaged and passionate about the work that we're doing. And integrating it into our personal and professional lives. There's some recent research on what they call the person behind the therapist, and the findings are really striking. Therapists who actively process significant personal events, our losses, the things that we're grieving, the transitions, the challenges that we're having, those are the moments that shape us and then allow us to consciously link those experiences to the clinical stance. And they report greater authenticity and sustained engagement in their work when they're able to do that. I think we sometimes operate under this myth that we need to keep our personal lives completely separate from our professional lives. And of course we do, but we're still bringing our personal selves into the therapy room and hoping to do it in an authentic way, whether we acknowledge it or not. And when we can thoughtfully process our own experiences and understand how they inform the way that we show up for our clients, that's when we become more present and more authentic while still holding those boundaries between our personal and professional selves. So that kind of integration can sustain motivation and deepen the quality of work that we're able to offer. And here's something else that I think is crucial: actively working to make systemic changes in the areas of practice that don't align with your values and goals. Because sometimes the issue isn't about our internal motivation. Sometimes we can't properly do self-care when we're not working in a supportive practice, or when there are systemic barriers that just burn us out. On the Kevin Curtis episode of the podcast, episode 13, he describes, why would you want to go to work every day and beat your head against the wall with the same challenges? It's so much more fun to try and change them. And that episode really illuminates how that is possible in a way that doesn't feel soul crushing or doesn't honor the depth of the therapeutic work that we see a need for with our clients, or when there are barriers to the clients getting the access that we all want them to have. So I think that can be a really exciting area as well, when we can identify those friction points and take action. Even small steps, or even just brainstorming how something would work better when we've always been taught that it can't, can be so empowering and help us move out of a place of feeling stuck or resentful. And this might look like advocating for policy changes in your organization, redesigning your own private practice structure and systems and SOPs, or even just setting new boundaries around how you engage with certain administrative tasks, or streamlining them better. Whatever it is, taking that action and feeling like you're moving towards something rather than enduring it is what can shift and reignite motivation in a powerful way. And at the end of the day, we need to feel like our work environment supports the kind of care we want to offer. And this is all part of our Therapist Excitement and Burnout series. So please do feel free to subscribe if you want to hear more about this process.